Hello and welcome back to the SecurityMetrics podcast. I'm Jen Stone, a Principal Security Analyst here at SecurityMetrics, and I'm super excited to talk to you today about PCI DSS 4.0. It's on a lot of people's minds. A lot of people don't know what it is, have a little concern about it, but I have the perfect person here to talk with me about it, Gary Glover. Gary, will you please tell people about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. It's great to be here. It's fun to be on the SecurityMetrics podcast. I remember when you first started these, I was saying, go for it. Let's get these going. So I really appreciate all your efforts over the years. I have the honor of being able to work with Jen. And so it's been fun. How many years has it been now?
It has been, I should look that up. It's over 5 years, but I'm not.
Over 5 years.
I'm not quite sure.
Something like that.
Yeah. It was the summer. I remember.
That's right. Well, it's been delightful, and we're grateful to have Jen here with us. I started here at SecurityMetrics 16 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I think 16 years ago now. And before that, I was a software developer at a company called Novell. Now, that's kind of dating all of us a little bit. If you know what Novell is.
If you know what Novell is, okay. If you are in Utah, everybody went through the Novell experience, it feels like. Yeah.
So I went through Novell. I was a C developer and worked on things like printer drivers. Really exciting.
Nice.
So I was convinced to come here by a friend of mine who I went to school with. And before that, I worked at McDonnell Douglas in Long Beach, near Long Beach, California, in Huntington Beach, California. And I was an aerospace engineer there. I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from Brigham Young University in 1988, which is a long time ago.
So you were a rocket scientist?
So I was a rocket scientist for about 7 years. And, when you're a rocket scientist, you kind of go, I can either do this the rest of my life as long as there's good rocket stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the rocket stuff's going away, then what do I do? Because you're kind of locked in.
Right.
So about the time that I was trying to make that decision, I can't remember, whatever president it wasn't Reagan, said, we're going to start cutting some of these programs that I was working on. And I worked on, lots of defense things and trying to get proposal money and stuff. So anyway, worked on things like Star Wars, neutral particle beams from space. So how do you top that and go to work on something kind of boring at an aerospace company? So
right.
At the time, we were losing all of those contracts because the Russians were now our friends.
Oh, okay.
1 year I was working on nuclear weapons, and the next year I'm in Moscow giving them another dating thing, Indigo, Silicon Graphics Indigo computers. I don't know if you ever remember.
I don't remember.
You don't remember those? Those
No.
were some of the first graphics computers that they needed. Anyway, so we formed a relationship with them on a Mars rover. But anyway, so I've been doing that kind of stuff for a long time. I remember my first experience with security was being told not to talk to Russians.
Huh.
And we had to be told that every 3 months to not talk to Russians.
Part of and then all of a sudden that changed.
Yeah, and then we can talk to Russians, but you had to still keep things secret. It's interesting. Real secret data was really boring. Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty boring for the most part, just numbers.
Yeah. Well,
but that's
most
how it goes.
data is.
Yes, that's right. So anyway, from there, went to Novell, and then while I was a software developer at another company after Novell, doing Java development, Brad Caldwell, who's the CEO of our company, lives up the street from me, and he kind of said, I think you need to be doing this stuff. And I'm going, what do you mean? I'm an engineer, software developer. I don't know, what's security? He goes, it's not rocket science.
And he had you there.
He had me there. So, I decided it was a good time to make a switch from software development into a field that I thought was going to be going farther. Turns out I made the right decision.
Yeah. Oh, and isn't security a fun field to be in?
It truly is. I remember thinking in software development, hey, the code I write now in 2 or 3, 5 years, nobody will even know anything about it. All the code that I wrote at Novell, nobody even knows anything about. So at least when you're in the security field, you're thinking, well, I'm improving something and some company, some team, and hopefully they'll keep those habits over time.
Yeah.
and little by little help to secure the world.
Right. Real impacts to real people.
Yeah.
And that's what I like
that's
about the job too.
That's what I liked.
Plus the daily puzzles. I've never had a job that I loved like I love this one. So, you know what? We should do a podcast on how to get into cybersecurity for people who are unfamiliar with it.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good topic. Hey, Hunter, let's write that down. Let's do that one. Awesome.
I just got it.
So, but that is not the topic today. The topic today is PCI DSS 4.0. But before we jump into that, I'm sure that we have some listeners who don't know what the PCI standard is. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, and I happen to know a little bit about it, having done it for the past 16 years. So
right.
When I came here, let's see, as I remember, only like Visa had their own standard, MasterCard had their own standard. Everybody kind of had something that they were trying to do to get people to be careful with credit card numbers. And right as I came here, they had all decided we ought to get together and just do one standard. So I came in January of 2005, and a little bit later that year, they really pretty much came up with and standardized on the PCI DSS, Data Security Standard 1.0. And, you know, we all kind of, there was really no training involved at the time. We had to kind of learn about, we read the standard and we started going and doing audits. I remember Brad took me on my very first assessment of a large bank, and, you know, we just kind of did our thing and looked at their software, looked at their network, tried to help them through these basic security standards, and we wrote up the results and turned it in. And back then, Visa would read each one, and you know, we interacted quite a bit with all the Visa people. But when I look back on it now, it almost feels like kind of cowboy days, right? I mean, we could pretty much write whatever we wanted in whatever style we wanted, and you know, it was just sort of getting started. So I have the unique perspective of being from the very beginning to now, kind of where we're at, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But there's been 9 different versions of the PCI standard since 2005.
But it's not currently 9.0.
No, it's not. So they've kind of gone, you know, smaller letters. They went from 1.1 to 1.2, and then to 2.0 was a big number, I remember, and then 3, and then 3.1, and now we're on 3.1.2, which
3.2.1.
Sorry, 3.2.1. You're right. So yeah, 2.20, 2.21,
well,
whatever
it takes.
Whatever it takes. So. You know, so 9 since 3.2.1, and you know, the council is now saying, hey, we're going to leave the 3s, go right into the 4s, start at 4.0. And typically, when you do that, it's thought of as a pretty major change.
Right.
So we'll talk more about what that really means, I think, as we go on here today. But it's been a fun journey to watch this thing mature over the years, and you know, move from statements like, hey, I saw the firewall rules and they looked really good, you know.
That's not a super informative statement.
To now we make a lot more detailed analysis, and not that we weren't doing our job back then, it was just different. How you write it up was different. Focus on the write-up, and the council has really had us QSAs focus on the write-ups. I remember the very first QSA class we had to go to. I still have friends from that very first class. It's really fun to have people that are still in the business. And I remember getting ready, and they said we had a test at the end. We're going, okay, well, test, great. It was the first time they tried a written test. It took 3 hours to do the test, and most of it was writing. And I remember writing in the margins, this question is hard because of. This isn't quite the right question to ask because of, you know. Okay. And I think everybody was doing the same thing because they're going, this isn't quite the right thing. So
reviewing the test as you're writing
the test as we went. And I think they improved it quite a bit from there. But I really enjoyed meeting with all the other QSAs in person, which is something we don't do as much anymore because everything's kind of in computer-based training. But anyway, that's the history. That's where it's come from. The card brands wanted to protect their interests, their property, the numbers are their property supposedly, right? How they think about those. And so it's one of the first real data security standards that has been enforced so well. Right. And so across the board. And I think some of that is because in some ways it's not a law. It's a thing that this industry is doing for themselves. Some people have kind of criticized the PCI industry, the payment card industry, saying, hey, it's like the fox guarding the hen house, but at least they're doing something, right?
Right. Well, and they have an interest in keeping those numbers secure. So it makes sense the way that, and I'll be honest, that I have assessed against many different standards and regulations. Because good security is good security.
Right.
And then
Across
you
the
have
board,
you take your good security and then you look at a standard and say, how does this suit this standard, right? And what I've found that when I have new companies talk to me about, well, how do I get started? How do I defend, or how do I protect this data that I have? And even if it's not PCI data, I find myself sometimes recommending the PCI DSS because it is a good defense in-depth approach to the confidentiality and integrity of data.
Yeah.
So it's not...
it's true. Years ago, Brad and I conducted an assessment for a small country for some of their financial things. The country will go unnamed at this point, but we thought, what better standard to really kind of base it on? So we kind of rewrote the report using these basic standards, created a report, an audit, because it really wasn't an audit for this at the time. This was back like 2006 or something. And it was a great collection, the digital dozen, they call it, the 12 things that really you should work on are pretty common across every security standard.
Yeah.
So
it's
a good effective standard.
And it's implementable because it has gone through these iterations, and bringing us now up to 3.2.1, and we're headed to 4.0. And the question I have is, okay, so we went 1, 2, 3 with little. Is the jump from 3 to 4 just like another step in the stairway, or is it like when you have a hurricane and you have a logarithmic scale?
And I think that's what a lot of people are worried about for 4.0. This industry seems to be real sensitive to any kind of changes. They like having everything stay the same for, financial industries kind of that way. You like things that are coming and can plan for. I think the really good thing about the 4.0 standard that everybody can be comfortable about is it still has the digital dozen. It's still in the same order, right? So it's going to be a familiar standard. It's not going to be something that's, like you said, in a hurricane and now I've got to familiarize myself with everything that they've talked about. It's really the basic same stuff. They're working on improving kind of the wording and combining a few things, organizing stuff a little bit better, so it's a little more, it makes more sense, I think.
Right.
We've looked at both versions of. Well, we could talk about that in the future. So I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Well, no, you're great. So why does it need to be updated?
So right, and that's I think a great question that everybody kind of wants to know. Well, and then you can kind of go back to my previous statements. Has the standard changed since 2005? Of course it has. Early on there was not a thing called the cloud, right? There was no concept of ransomware, all these. There was malware, right? But as the world evolves and as the bad guys' skills evolve, then things have to change. The other thing I think is that as the industry evolves, we start saying, hey, this is higher risk than this. We should focus on this. We should work. So to me, I felt the standard mature and be more focused in the areas where it needs to be. And I think this next version is the attempt of the council at becoming a little bit more even objective based. They're kind of saying this is the security objective for this requirement. It's not you must do A, B, C, D, and E in the exact same order with the exact same way that everybody else in the industry is doing it. But it's more like here's the requirement, here's the security principle. What are you going to do? Now you can, and we could talk about this a little. We'll talk about this more later in the podcast. But so the standards have to change because the world is changing,
right?
And the bad guys are changing, and we're just getting older. We're not cowboys anymore. Now we're driving Mustangs. I don't know what are you going to call it?
I do like the thought of the objective based, and I know that SecurityMetrics and you personally have been quite a bit involved in in the change process. That I'd love to go over that change process. I haven't, and so what I see as an assessor is the way the standard is written. Sometimes it's asking me to answer questions in a way that I'll be like, that's not how it works in the cloud. How do I now answer this? And so I find myself already switching to the thought process of, well, what is the problem they're trying to solve?
Right. What's the principle?
And so you go back to the basic principle of whatever the requirement is, and find a way to answer it that way. But it almost feels like, well, am I actually answering the question that they're asking? And if I'm not, how different is it? Do I need to now jump to a compensating control for this, or is this still answering this requirement? So it seems like shifting to meeting an objective is going to help us close those gaps as security and as technology continues its rapid change. Because there's no way we've already reached we changed and now we're in the cloud and now this is how we're at. No, because everything changes and everything is going to continue to change.
And I think over the years, people have kind of complained, and sometimes that they feel like the PCI standard is vague. Compared to something like HIPAA, I think it's very, very well prescribed.
Oh yeah,
and talk about some vague standards. There are some vague standards out there. The other thing I don't want our listeners or watchers to get the impression that, hey, they're making such a huge change that it's moving towards more vagueness and more openness and all that. I mean, there's still some really excellent guidance. There's lots of improvements in there. The last column of the standard will be their guidance section. And there's still prescribed things that you can do to be compliant, right? It's not like, I think I'm compliant
Figure
today.
in the air. I don't know.
I think I'm compliant today. It's not like that. There are going to be some are very specific things that need to happen to show compliance. But they have made a good focus.
So every organization is so different in the way they choose to solve their technology problems that I think the more prescribed our list is, the more chance we have that what's being asked doesn't actually fit the environment.
Right.
I personally have never found the PCI to be vague. I find that if you understand technology and you understand security, then you're able to grasp the intent of what's being asked and answer it accurately in a way that increases the security stance of the organization. I think it's only vague if you're unfamiliar with technology.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when people do make that claim, I would just encourage them to do a little bit more research and reading on the thing that they feel is vague, because possibly it's just they don't have the context to understand it. And so maybe it's an opportunity for learning. Right. But if we look at again, well, what is this? The status, like where are we at with 4.0?
So and this is you asked a little bit kind of how is the industry or how is the community involved in the development of 4.0? And I have been astounded. It's been really wonderful, this version of the standard, how open the council has been about it. There's been two public, let me go like this because
air quotes.
It's not to everybody, but public to the community.
Okay.
Releases for RFCs, requests for comments, and the first one was, earlier in 2020, and then later in 2020, we were given the opportunity to give comments again, and they didn't just send it to the card brands. They didn't just send it to the big banks. They sent it to the QSAs. They sent it to merchants. They said anybody who kind of had signed up and was part of the community, you can provide your comments. And the council in those two RFC sessions received almost 5,000 comments.
Oh, excellent.
From people, and they're actually going through every single one. And obviously some of them are going to be the same and or similar or talk about something that's just not the direction we're going to go. But they actually addressed each comment individually and released all of that as well.
Nice.
So people can see kind of what's going on. That has been a really, really neat. It makes me as a member of this community, the assessor community, makes me feel more part of this and makes me want to stand behind it more. And I think that has been one of the biggest changes. Before the council kind of pretty much did stuff in their own kind of environment and then just kind of released it and said, well, we know best. This is what
so
it
it's
is.
been more opaque.
And it hasn't been bad.
Before.
It hasn't been bad.
But the decision-making process.
Opaque, So I really like that. So right now, The status is they've ended the second RFC. They're going through the comments like they did before. They're going to address each one of them, and then they'll improve the standard one more time. So in other words, it's not done yet.
Okay.
It's not baked all the way yet.
Okay.
You know? It's been mixed up, and the recipe is getting really close. But there may be some changes. So I mean, nobody's really can say exactly what it's going to be because we don't
know yet.
Don't exactly know.
Yeah.
But in general, we'll be able to talk today about some of the major areas where changes are going to occur. But the schedule that we're on, and I think we actually have a visual that we could show and it's the first one. It's on the status, the release. So this is the release schedule for PCI DSS 4.0.
Is that the development timeline, or
that's kind of the
transition?
That's the development
timeline.
Development timeline chart. We'll put that up for our viewers.
Yeah, and there are some of our people who participate just by audio, and I don't know if they even know that we actually have YouTube. You can or go to the video
so you can
on
see
our site.
Our lovely faces right at the same time here.
Right, and who wouldn't want that?
No. So. And the main detail on this chart here is that the release is going to be sometime in Q2, I'm guessing, of 2021. Now, do we know exactly? No, we don't, because the council's still, finalizing the comments and all that. And frankly, they're taking such good care. It may take a little bit longer. I don't really know. They're not saying. I can't really say.
Right.
But we expect it in Q2 of 2021. Now, that'll be the standard itself. That'll be released. It'll be one document saying, here's the requirement, here's the testing procedures, and here's some guidance.
Okay.
It's not all the SAQs, all the program guides, all of the form for the report on compliance, all that stuff. That's not ready yet. First, they're getting the standard ready, and then the supporting documents. Supporting documents are going to work forward on that. And that should be by the end of 2021.
And I've already had customers asking me, well, when it's released, like, what should I be preparing for next year if I don't even know what it's going to be?
Right. So let me talk about that. I think that's a really great and important question for all the community to understand is, when do I have to worry about moving to the standard? And the great thing is that the council knows that this is going to be there's going to be some pretty big, more procedural changes almost than the standard isn't going to change. All of a sudden, you're not going to have bulletproof glass, right? That's not going to be there. It's not going to be that kind of stuff. But it's how do we make it a little bit more flexible, and then how do we write that? How do we how can we make the SAQs better? They have a large SMB task force that's formed right now that we're a part of that. They're asking for input on what the SAQs, should be. And are they going to be really close? Are they going to be a little bit different? I don't know. We don't know yet. So I think the main point here is stay tuned and don't worry, right?
Okay.
So what should you be worrying about right now? You should be worrying about being compliant to PCI DSS 3.2.1.
And that's been around for a little while.
That's been around. So there's nothing to worry about. The transition time is really long and very... I don't want to say the word casual because you do have to be aware of it and you need to be planning for it. But the sky is not falling in 2021.
Right.
As soon as the standard is released, you don't have to move to it. In fact, even the council says, I wouldn't really do that until after 2021.
Yeah.
Let's wait till everything is out. And this is where we could put up that transition slide. There's a transition timeline, and you can see that the transition goes from, let's say it comes out in Q2 of 2021, then in Q2 of 2023, fully 24 months later, that's when we're expecting people to be compliant to the standard. So now you could do it in between there, and maybe some larger companies will want to start looking at it, but it's not like this rush and this big worry that you have to, by the end of 2021, we have to be doing all kinds of different stuff. You got 24 months from till 2023.
So people will have time to adapt and accommodate the changes, whatever they happen to be.
And even then, there's some future-looking requirements, some new things that are being added, cloud and other kind of things, that are future dated. Just like you've seen in the standard in the past, they'll be, hey, we're going to introduce this new thing on
TLS
1.2 or something like that, something odd like that. And they'll say, well, we're going to have this become effective later in the future. And so the later in the future is Q1 of 2024.
Yeah.
So you've got another 2 quarters to go, so another 6 months past that to really get all of those things in there. So be calm. What is it they say? Is it be calm?
Be calm and carry on.
Yeah. Be calm. Carry on with 3, 2, 1. I mean, this is the key.
You said something that interested me a little earlier, that SecurityMetrics is involved in the process, that there are these task forces and these groups and things that we get to be part of to help add our voices to this. And I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think, there's the other thing that the council has done this year, well, they've done it in the past couple of years as well, is they formed something called the GEAR, a Global Executive Assessor Roundtable. So they're actually asking representatives from a lot of QSA firms, I can't remember the number, I think it's over 40 or something that are involved, and having us provide feedback to them, for certain topics. And 4.0 is obviously a big topic right now. So
Sure.
we're involved in that effort, and I can't say much about it because, again, it hasn't been finalized yet,
Right.
and we're also under NDA to not be discussing stuff like this. But what I can say is I am very pleased with the work that's going on, and I think the
Nice.
community will be too. And I'm just really happy that we, as the people, you and I, are out on the front lines actually making these assessments. This is one of the first times that the council is coming to us and saying, what really are the issues? And
Right.
and they're listening. So that's really exciting.
It is.
So there's that. The GEAR has a number of task forces inside it that are focusing on certain things, like this new customized approach, which we can talk about a little bit later.
That was my next question, was the
Okay.
custom, because that's actually that's a big rumor. So
It is.
it almost feels like the first rule of customized approach is not to talk about customized approach. So what can you tell us
So
about
I can,
that?
I think before I get too deep in that, I think the other thing that we want to say, we've talked about why it's being updated. It's being updated for industry standards. We're focusing a little bit more on continuous security as a process.
Sure.
PCI has started thinking about that for many years. One of the main requests from a lot of people was flexibility in validation methods. And there are some companies that say, look, what I do is really, really good, but like you were saying before, it's not in this list of
not in
things
the list,
that I
yeah.
should be doing.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, a good security analyst can go, okay, well, let me think about the principle and let's see if we can figure out how to make this work. And before we would say, well, it doesn't quite fit, so we'll just write a customized
Compensating
control, right? Throw that in there, and that kind of worked. Now, I think the industry had this feeling about compensating controls that they were just temporary, and like, well, as soon as I can be big and do it the right way, then I won't have one of these compensating controls, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the way
That's the way a lot of people look at it.
people look at it, and it probably is in some ways the right way to look about it, back then, because so in 4.0, compensating controls will be dead. There will not be such a thing as a compensating control. Now everybody's gonna go, what? What am I gonna do? Because some people have compensating controls because theirs doesn't quite match.
Right.
So the cool thing about this flexibility, and again, it was a lot of larger companies that typically have these because they're buying other software, doing other methods that may have very similar risk reduction or whatever it is, protections involved. The idea, the meaning, what's the word I'm trying to say? The intent.
The intent.
The intent of the council and of 4.0 is to make everybody feel like a customized approach is a permanent thing. It's not something that you have to say, well, let's evaluate this year and just see, are you guys really worthy of a compensating control anymore, or should you really have just done the thing that you're supposed to do? And the idea is customized approach will be, this is a permanent change in your approach to this requirement, this security objective, and here's how you're going to meet it. So that sounds great, right? Sounds easy. I think this is where the hard part comes. It's the do hard part button. instead of the easy button.
Well,
Customized approach is not the easy
It
button.
is not exactly, and if it's the easy button, you're probably doing it wrong.
Exactly. And I think one thing that, all of us as the QSA community are a little worried about is everybody just saying, I want that button, right?
Yeah.
I am a really small merchant. I'm a really small company. I want the button because I don't want to do this really hard thing. I'm going to say that I don't need to do that, right?
Right.
And if you're thinking that way and you're thinking you're really excited about the customized approach and how much easier your audit will be,
No.
don't. So this is where I get to look at my camera and say, no. So the customized approach will be for very mature organizations with a very mature risk assessment process almost already in place.
Right.
Because frankly, to make a customized approach work, they're not going to come to you, Jen, and say, Jen, I'd like to do a customized approach.
And then I will be like, oh, let me think of a customized approach I can give you.
I can do that for you.
Yeah, no.
That's not. It's in other words, Jen, we have a proposal for a customized approach, and we have 100 pages of documentation that we'd like to present to you so that you feel good about that.
Right.
Right? That's the expectation they need to have, is that the customized approach is not going to be an easy out, saying like, I really hate doing these scans every year. I want a customized approach that says I don't have to do them.
No.
Sorry, sorry.
No, where I'm looking forward to it is where I'm already, basically using it in cloud environments, especially where it is abstracted. Everything is abstracted to the service layer, right? So a lot of the questions don't apply to the environment because I remember the first time I worked with a guy in AWS, and he's like, "That's not how it works in an ephemeral environment." And I'm like, "I believe you, sir, because you are clearly worked up about this." And so then we talked about how does the technology actually work. It was the longest, most difficult, most in-depth part, and I learned a ton, and I'm super grateful to him. Still in contact. I actually still contact him when I have questions about AWS. But this is how it actually works. This is how this meets the intent. How are you going to write this up in a way that is sensible and respects the security stance that we have?
Right.
But it takes time and conversation.
And as a QSA, we're going to say, where's your risk assessment? I need to evaluate that.
Right.
Where's the, what are the security principles? Tell me how you're going to do that. Let's document all of this. And then the role of the QSA in a customized approach, again, is not to come up with it.
No.
It's then the role of the QSA to say, okay, thank you for all this documentation. Let's review it. Let's iterate on it. Let's talk about it. I mean, this is a two-way street here. And then your job as a QSA is to say, all right, given this thing that I believe in, how do I now test that to make sure that that thing that you're doing is in place?
How do we objectively
So the
know?
job of the QSA is to come up with, a few testing requirements that are then maybe different than what's in the standard to say, all right, for me to be able to validate this, I need to check this document. I need to talk to these people. I need to see the schedule for this, whatever it may be, right? I need to see the evidence that this software is running and that it's running every day and that it's working, whatever it may be. And then your job is to write that up and present it as compliant.
But the onus really is on the company, and it should be.
Absolutely.
Because your security assessor is not your security architect, right?
Right.
And so while there are a lot of very technical knowledgeable assessors out there, not everyone is going to understand your technology in your environment. It's certainly not to the degree that you do.
Right.
And so making those decisions should be with the company.
Well, and there is the whole principle of independence.
Yeah.
If I'm the QSA and I come up with your customized approach, and then I decide how to test it, where's the independent? I mean,
there is no independence.
There is no independence,
Yeah.
and that is a very important part of security validation, any kind of audits, financial audits, any kind of audits.
Yeah, for sure. So compensating controls are going away.
Compensating controls will go away. They're not away yet. And so what do you do now? Go to 3.2.1.
3.2.1. So what about SAQs? Did you say SAQs are going away?
No. SAQs are not going to go away. And I can't say much about this because, again, there isn't just that much information. But the thing that I'm interested in and really excited about is that the council is saying this is our opportunity to see, can we make this better? Can we make this SAQ system better that will make more people happy? And I think that's a question that they're asking, which is a tough question, right? Because it's real easy to just say, yeah, no, we're doing it the same way we've always done it.
Right.
And they're asking the question. Now, in the long run, it may end up that it'll be very similar. I don't know, right? It may be that we'll go through all these exercises and come up and say, well, that has been that's about the best way you can do it, right?
Might validate that what we've been doing is the way to do it,
So
even
again,
though not everybody's happy.
But I'm not saying that. Right?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know. So, but SAQs are being worked on. There's a lot of interested people in these communities. In fact, we're meeting tomorrow morning to start talking about it again. So,
excellent.
It's an ongoing effort. Feel confident in that effort, and stay informed, but not worried.
Don't panic.
Don't panic.
As Douglas Adams says.
There you go. Don't panic.
Get yourself a red button that says don't panic.
Yeah.
So if people do have questions about 4.0 and they want to know more about transitioning and who should they talk to?
Well, I think at this point, the right thing to do is wait for a couple of months here and you'll be able to see it.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the easiest way. Your QSA, if you have a QSA, that might be a good place to start. In fact, even after 4.0 comes out, if you have a QSA, you should be starting to work with them.
Definitely.
And start saying, hey, how is this going to be different in the future? In the next 2 years, what are we going to need to do? You can start thinking about it, but don't all of a sudden believe you have to go that direction. Don't push your QSA to say, well, now we want to be 4.0 compliant.
Right. Do it when it makes sense,
right?
Not as a knee-jerk reaction.
And let me go back one quick thing. We talked a lot about the customized approach.
Yes.
And what I want to make sure that's clear is the customized approach is not the only thing in 4.0.
Right.
So in other words, there still is a concept of the defined approach. If you want to just follow exactly here, show this, do this testing procedure, go through and show these things, look at this evidence, that's there.
Right.
There will be a defined approach. So if you're used to doing it that way, then it's going to be the same way you're doing it, right? So
And
don't worry about that as well.
honestly, until it's completed and released, we don't know any of that definitively.
Yeah.
Right? These are all...
But the defined approach will be familiar.
Yeah, it will be.
It's not going to be like, oh my heavens, this is weird. Oh my.
What? Requirement 3?
Yeah, when did they ask for us to have a rabbit? I don't understand that.
Everybody should have a rabbit. I personally have 3.
Yes, I know.
So, and some chickens. Okay. So, is there anything I missed in asking about the 4.0?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's, again, I wish we could say a whole lot more, and I've had the opportunity to read it and go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm not worried about it.
Great.
So I guess that's something I want everybody to go away with is it's gonna be okay, right?
Well, if you're not worried, then I'm not worried.
The virus is gonna go away. 4.0 is gonna come out. Everything's gonna be okay.
Wait a minute. If we all get ponies, this is going to be like perfect.
That's right. So that
right.
really is kind of the main thing is that it's gonna be good. It'll be fine. Customized approach. Don't hang all your future on that and say, oh, now it's going to be so easy. Remember, that's for very mature organizations. I doubt. I can't say I'm not. I guess it's not a definitive statement. I doubt that it will be possible for SAQs to do that if you're validating with an SAQ.
Sure.
Now, maybe if you've got a QSA that's helping you do an SAQ, perhaps that hasn't been decided yet either. But I wouldn't count on it as a small business or small service provider or merchant to say, great, now we can do something. We can write our own standard. Let me just stop that right now. Yeah.
That sounds exhausting. All right. So work with your QSA. Don't panic. Stick with 3.2.1.
That is the standard right now.
That is the standard.
And even when you see 4.0 coming out in Q2 of 2021, just go, cool, I'm going to go read it.
Right.
And I'm going to start getting familiar with it. And I'm going to note the things that are future, that are coming in the future, that are future focuses. I don't know, future requirements, right?
Yeah.
So there'll be things like different scoping guidance. There'll be things they'll probably update data transmission again.
Okay.
Bit, right?
I wouldn't be surprised because data transmission keeps getting
Don't be surprised
popped.
if you don't see something about social engineering and phishing. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing now. And that's an
Huge.
update, right?
Yeah.
don't be surprised if you see a whole lot more on risk assessments. Right now, risk assessment in the PCI DSS 3.2.1 is like one-liner.
And it's embedded. It's like
It's in the middle of section 12, right?
Yeah, something.
That's going to be a bigger deal.
Yeah.
People need to do a better job at risk assessments.
Right.
That's the message that's going to be taught in 4.0. Not a bad message.
You know,
it'll be a little harder, but it's not.
Well,
a bad
and risk
message.
assessments. See, nothing about security is easy, though.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something that we all kind of want to be like, oh, I just want to set and forget and walk away. But security is an every moment thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so recognizing that it takes effort, and the companies that I see already doing really not great risk assessments have a better security stance than those who are not, because they don't understand how to tune security in their organizations to face the actual risks that they have.
So that's going to be there. I think there'll be some focus on continuing maybe more frequent scoping, let's say, and proof of that, so that you're doing continuous process security rather than, hey, it's time for our audit. It's April. Let's get this done and let's get on with real business, right? I mean, the idea is that that's not the way that you do, network security, data security. So you'll see more on the cloud. You'll probably see more on multi-factor authentication requirements.
Good. That should be everywhere.
And like I said, the SAQs will be somehow updated.
All right.
So that's the biggest mystery. I think,
Leaving
right
us
now.
with a mystery.
That's right. Well, this has been delightful.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming and talking to us and the information you gave on 4.0. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. To watch more episodes of SecurityMetrics podcast, click on the box on the left. If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. See you on the slopes.